Some important methods in psychology. Psychologists use many scientific methods for research purpose to understand various psychological issues more scientifically. Before going to the details, please remember to subscribe the channel. Thank you. The methods are observational method, experimental method, correlational research, survey research, psychological testing, and case study. We'll see each of these in detail. Observational method. Here, the behavior is simply observed but systematically. For example, consider a study of young children's behavior. The researcher observes the children while they interact with other children on a playground. So this is an observational method. They observe the participants. The main objective of observational research is to discover the variables that impact the behavior of the participant. Earlier we have studied so many things can impact the behavior of an individual. So they just wanted to study what all things can impact the behavior. The research is described as non-experimental because it occurs in a natural setting without any control. Naturalistic observation. It is the observation that takes place in participants' natural environment. For example, if a psychologist wants to study the mental health in a correctional system, what they do? They will observe the imprisoned people in jail and in prison. So, those who have imprisoned, they are seen in jail or prison. That is a natural environment and the psychologists go there and will do the observation. They observe their behavior and what all things are impacting their behavior. For some time, the observation can take place without the participant's knowledge. And this is known as disguised. That is, the participant doesn't know that they are being observed. That is disguised naturalistic observation. And it is considered ethical if the individual remains anonymous. The observation takes place in a public context where no expectation of privacy exists. In that case, this disguised naturalistic observation is considered ethical. When this is not possible, what happens? Undisguised natural observation may be effective. And sometimes this undisguised observation can cause a phenomenon known as reactivity. Reactivity occurs when participants know they are being observed. So in disguised, participant doesn't know they are being observed. But in undisguised, participants know that they are being observed. So in that case, reactivity can happen. That is, it causes change in their behavior and it can impact the data. The psychologists are there to collect data. So if they feel like they are being observed, then it will affect their behavior and it impact the data. The reactivity can be lessened or even eliminated with longer observation. This allows people to get more comfortable with being observed. This can be seen in reality TV shows. There what happens, the individuals will be on their best behavior when the program starts. And as the time goes, their behavior becomes more natural. They are used to the feel that they are being observed. So they behave naturally. Then comes participant observation. It is different from naturalistic observation. Here the researcher is involved. The goals are same, but the researcher engages in the setting and with the individuals. The researcher will be seen among the participants. One of the main benefits of this methodology is that researchers are in a prime position to understand the experience of the group and the individual because he is into the group. The criticism of the participant observation is that the active researcher can impact the dynamics of the group. The researcher could develop biases by forming relationship with the individuals being studied. Next is experimental method. Experiments are the often used method of research. There are certain principles involved in its use. One is the presence of a control group. This is an individual or a group of individuals who are not manipulated. Another principle is the control of variables. That is, the experiment should be as free of extraneous data as possible. This factor enables psychologists to repeat the experiment. The third principle is the consistency of measurement. Allowing different standards makes replication impossible. The results are unreliable. The fourth principle involved in showing cause and effect. That is, the manipulations performed in the experiment led to the results and nothing else was involved. There are three main types of experiment: field experiment, lab experiment, and natural experiment. This is based on the environment where the experiment takes place. It can be in a natural setting, it can be a lab setting or a field setting. The strength of this methodology are these experiments are easy to replicate. They allow for detailed control of variables. Limitations include the artificial setting. It can cause unnatural reactions and potential research bias. We will see this with an example. To evaluate the teaching method of two teachers, teacher A and teacher B is there, and we want to evaluate the teaching method of A and B. They can be assigned to student groups. Two student groups are set and these teachers are made to teach each of the group. After teaching their respective groups on the same topic, it is an experiment, so the topic should be same. So on the same topic, these teachers A and B will be teaching their respective student groups. After that, a test is conducted and the result is used to determine which group scored better and who is better at teaching. This method can have drawbacks also because certain factors like the attitude of the students and the effectiveness to grasp a subject, etc. can affect the result and it may negatively influence the result. Here the experiment can be replicated by changing the group. We can change the student group or we can reshuffle the student groups or we can change the teachers. So the experiment can be replicated by changing the variables. We have the control over the variables and we can show the cause and effect. These teachers teaching or the way of the teaching is affected positively or negatively. This cause and effect can be shown through this experimental method. Correlational research. Here, the researcher uses this method if he wants to examine the relationship between two variables. The researcher does not vary the independent variable. He is only concerned about whether the two variables are linked to each other or not. For example, if you want to find the relation between yoga and psychological health of a person, then you simply try to find the relationship between these two factors. You won't manipulate anything. The degree of association between the variable is represented by the correlational coefficient. It ranges from +1 to -1. The correlation can be of three types: positive correlation, negative correlation, or zero correlation. In positive correlation, if we increase or decrease the value of one variable, the value of another variable also increase or decrease. That is, if A increases, B also increase. And if A decrease, B also decrease. And that is positive correlation. For example, the umbrella sales increase as the rainy weather increase. So both the variable is increasing here. Next is negative correlation. If we increase or decrease the value of one variable, the value of another variable decrease or increase respectively. That is, if A increases, then B decreases. And if A decreases, B increases. So, it is a negative correlation. For example, how do hot chocolate sale increase as the temperature decreases? Or in a winter season, why the chocolate sale increase? This can be a question for a correlational research. If the change in the value of one variable does not affect the another variable, then what happens? Then there is no relationship exist between the variables. So in positive correlation, A increase, B increase, A decrease, B decrease. And in negative correlation, A increase, B decrease, and A decrease, B increase. In zero correlation, with the change of one variable, the other variable does not affected by the change. So there is no relationship between the variables. For example, being a millionaire and happiness, they are not correlated. An increase in money doesn't lead to happiness. Next is survey research. Respondents, those who are answering the questions, are called respondents. They are sent surveys. They are asked to self-report their actions, thoughts, or feelings. This is used to measure how certain variables may impact them. One of the most critical aspects of survey research is the sampling method used. Most researchers prefer large samples that are representative of the population they are studying. Surveys vary greatly. They can be lengthy or quite short. They can be conducted over a variety of communication channels, such as over the internet, in person, through mail, or telephonic conversation, or even video chat. In psychological survey, they measure the prevalence of mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol abuse in a particular community, region or country, etc. This is an example for a psychological survey. How many people are suffering from any mental health issues. In specific, it can be anxiety, it can be depression. To know this thing, a survey can be done. Another example is a school can study how students and their parents respond to the efforts taken by the educational institution. Its strengths include the ability to gather qualitative data and the relatively low cost. So, the survey research has the ability to gather qualitative data in a relatively low cost. And some of the weakness of this method is the potential for poor question design due to bias and poor sampling. It can affect the survey research. Next is psychological testing. It is also known as psychometric test. Psychological tests are scientifically proven and standardized tests, and they are constructed by psychologists. These are used to assess various characteristics of humans, such as attitude, aptitude, personality, intelligence quotient, and emotional quotient. The multiple choice questions of the psychological test are carefully designed, and the factors like gender, age, class, qualification, etc. are considered before conducting these tests. Psychological tests can be conducted offline or online, depending upon the applicability and the availability. The necessary part of the psychological test is that the participants or the subject upon whom the test is conducted should be properly informed. That is, the participants are properly informed about what? About the testing procedure, the proper instructions about marking or filling the test, then the time duration of the test, and should be verbally provided to them for their better understanding. These tests are constructed by following a systematic approach and three important factors. That is, these tests are constructed by following systematic approach and three important factors. They are: the test should be valid, it should be reliable, and it should follow norms. So this is about psychological testing. Case study. Case study in the psychology discipline are typically conducted on specific individuals. A psychology case study most often collects salient biographical moments from a patient's, and it also collects important events in the individual's daily life. So, during case study, the biographical moments and the important events in an individual's life is taken to bring forth the maladaptive behavior and thinking. Case studies are conducted by interviewing and observing. So, the researcher will do a one-on-one interview with the participant, and along with that, observation method is also used to understand the patient behavior. The researcher describes the behavior and discusses the events from the patient's perspective. Often the interviews are unstructured. Sigmund Freud used case studies to understand the problems, diagnose the patient, and to assist them with their psychological ailments. In case study method, the researcher does qualitative research and in-depth analysis of a specific case, that is the subject under the investigation. The result obtained from this method are highly reliable. In fact, many famous theories such as the psychoanalytic theory of Sigmund Freud and Jean Piaget's cognitive development theory are the results of well-structured and proper case studies of the subject. So, it is conducted on specific individuals and it is an in-depth analysis. Let's have a quick recap. We have learned observational method, experimental method, correlational research, survey research, psychological testing, and case study. Hope you like this video. Please share this channel. Thank you and keep smiling.